सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। So we are towards the end portion of the perfect human being, Sthitaprañja, the one of steady wisdom, verses 54 to 72 of chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. So in the 69th verse, after giving us the importance of the intellect and explaining how if you don't have an intellect, the mind, the senses take away the mind, and the mind drags the intellect with it. And then you're gone, right? So in the 68th verse, he defines perfection as one who has that complete self-control. In other words, it's not self-denial, but you decide how you contact the world. Your mind doesn't decide for you. So the whole problem now is wherever the mind decides, in other words, wherever you are victimized by your own emotions, that's where you have problems in this life. That's all there is. Control your mind, control the world, control your life. That's what he's saying in the 68th verse. Therefore, his wisdom is established who has a complete intellectual supervision. In other words. And then in 69, he comes back to the perfected soul in terms of the difference between what they experience and what we experience. A staggering statement meant to wake you up. That which is night to all beings, the self-controlled keeps awake. That in which beings are awake is night to the sage who sees. So what is day to us is night to them. What is night to them is day to us. See, imagine, before the butterfly emerges, it's in a pupa condition, right? Pupa is called, right? Caterpillar, cocoon, pupae, and then the butterfly, right? These are the stages. So imagine the life of that butterfly before it emerges. It's dark, it's shackled, it's imprisoned. And what is the life of that butterfly once it starts flying? Night and day, right? This is the difference. That's what they try and explain, and how much ever they try, because they can't show it to you. The self is beyond the world. We don't understand. We completely ignore the teachings of these great masters because we just don't understand the difference. So these kind of statements are meant for you to think. What is this world? This is a world which is finite, which is perishable. Everything changes. It all goes. Death bound. Various stages in your life and your life itself. And within that life, you have the fact that you're not in that self, in your original state. You always feel that sense of unfulfillment, sorrow, which manifests as desires. So, compared to that, the self is the state of total happiness. It's this imperishable, immortal state. This is illusion. That is the reality, the infinity. So, how can they explain the difference when we don't know what it is? So, that's why I told you last week Plato's metaphor also, right? A generation of people living deep inside a cave. Imagine one person comes out, rest of them are all stuck there. What is the difference? You can give yourself examples after examples. So, in the Upanishads, they try and quantify it. So he says, suppose you are the richest person in this world and the most powerful and young. Because you may say, I'm richest, most powerful, but I'm going to die tomorrow. What is the point? And young and good looking also. Because you say, I'm richest, most powerful, but nobody looks at me. Okay, anything. Everything you can think. What is your happiness? You will say, what are you talking? I'll grab that tomorrow. He says 100 times more than that is the happiness of a Gandharva. Means he's just giving a symbolic gesture, an ordinary citizen of heaven, for lack of a better term. Again, it's just symbolic, not literal. 100 times more than that is the happiness of a yaksha, means a demigod, etc. 100 times more than that is the happiness of the office bearers, Vayu, Agni, and 100 times more than that is Indra, the Lord of heaven. 100 times more than that is Brahma, the creator. 100 times more than that, enlightenment, self-realization. Now in one unit only you're stuck, what you're talking. So they can't explain. They try and explain in different ways. But we are so small-minded. So small-minded. We can't see it. And then, very interesting, when he talks in the middle range, Yaksha, he puts in, not only is that the happiness of a Yaksha, it's also the happiness of a Shrotriya, a Kamahata, a person well versed in Vedanta and established in the self. Means a highly evolved spiritual aspirant. So it's not you got to wait till there. Even if you are evolved, this world means nothing. It's completely meaningless. So where is that and where is the self? That's what he's saying, which is night to us is day to them. We can't understand. But at least it should inspire us. There's a lot more in this world than what I'm doing and experiencing. There's a lot more to learn. And as you go towards it, you will taste it. The joys of giving versus taking, devotion, knowledge, objectivity, detachment, no expectation, all that you will have. Doesn't need to be enlightened for that. So these statements are meant for that kind of inspiration. So you should take it in that vein. What we are experiencing, the best of us, they don't even know what you're doing. It's too childish. And what they are experiencing, we have no clue. So a lot to do, in other words. So periodically they put in these kind of, like I said, in the Upanishad, suddenly he brings that in 100 times, 100 times, 100 times. So you suddenly don't know what they're saying. And he's teaching a king. He says, what are you experiencing? King. You think you have a kingdom? You're all nothing. Yes. You have a question there? Somebody?
There's a question from Indra regarding bhajans that we play. Listening to these bhajans brings so much bliss in my heart, but I also feel emotional after listening to them. Could you explain why that happens?
Listening to bhajans or devotional songs brings bliss in my heart, but I also get emotional. It is emotional. It is an emotion, so it's good. But the emotion should not go out of control. You shouldn't start crying and start seeing something. I see a halo around you, some nonsense. All that is you have lost control of your emotion. So it should come till your eyes and not go into tears. That is real emotion. Should be under control. So you feel, but you are not overcome. Once you overcome, it becomes a mind's indulgence, which is not spiritual. And if you don't feel also, there's a problem. That means you don't have the feeling. You're like a dry philosophy professor or something. You know this, you know that, but there's no feeling. That's not going to help. You understand? So 69, he gives that contrast. Where is that and where are we? So at least our life's mission should be as close as I can get to that state. That should be my mission in this world, right? Because to the extent you do that, to that extent you're peaceful, happy, content, focused. Everything else is passing. See, there's somebody close to us and their 20-year-old son, can you believe, who's studying here from outside the US, come here to study a very prestigious university. Suddenly in the night, he says, I can't feel anything. And long and short, in the ICU, the ventilator, some very pernicious syndrome. How it changes. In 1 second, his life is changed. His parents have changed. This is what he means in the Bhaja Govindam. Life is like a drop of water on a lotus leaf. Anytime, anything can happen. To you, to me. We all think, oh, it's somebody else. And even that life, he says, it's full of this sorrow and suffering. So it's illusion, sorrow, and death, as the Upanishads say. So, what are you getting out of it? Just a temporary kick here and there. For that, you've given up yourself. Sad. So all these books will not make a difference unless you talk to yourself. Look, what am I doing in this world? What is my purpose? That's what I want you to talk to yourself. Why am I studying this? Not simply Sunday mornings is a good, we do something good. All mechanical. Ramatirtha says that, right? No use hearing lecturing from others, hearing lectures from others unless you're prepared to lecture to yourself. So this is not a statement of verse 69 of the Gita. It is what you have to tell yourself. Why am I not anywhere close to that state? What are they trying to say? What could it be that made somebody leave a kingdom and go in search of the truth? What is that? Which has happened to so many people. It's happening to me in some way or the other, right? That's why you're sitting here. Most of you, at least who I know, all they have everything in life. Then why are you here because you understand there has to be something more. So find that out. Don't compromise till it's done. That should be your attitude. So you got to reflect on that disparity. That's what we don't understand. Whatever you have in this world is nothing compared to what you could have, what you could be. Nothing. You could be the richest person. I sympathize with you. Literally. It's like a person who's free sympathizing with the top guy in the prison. I am the top fellow in this prison. What does he not understand? Is a prison. So Ramatirtha used to talk like that. He was a great sage. And they said when he came to America to teach, this is 120 years ago. He said, we have money. You don't have anything. You don't have money. He says, bars are bars. Prison bars are bars. Yours are made of gold. Ours are made of iron. Both are imprisoned, right? I have gold bars. I'm in a cage with gold bars. You're in a cage with iron bars. Wow. Get out of the cage is the question. Kabira says that पारस में और संत में बड़ो ही अंतर जान, एक लोहा कंचन करे, एक कर आप समान. He says between Paras is a mythological stone which converts iron into gold. It's just a concept. He says there's a huge difference between that stone and a real saint because that stone only converts iron to gold. But the saint can make you like himself. A true saint. So what will you all take? Forget the saint. Where is that? Where is that stone? Now what can you do? Clear? So far. So again, to elaborate further on this disparity, he uses in 70 another famous example. In fact, this is from the Mundaka Upanishad of the river that merges into the ocean, the transformation of the finite into the infinite.
आपूर्यमाणमचलप्रतिष्ठम् समुद्रमापः प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत्कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी आपूर्यमाणमचलप्रतिष्ठम् समुद्रमापः प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत्कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी.
As the waters enter the ocean, which fill from all sides remains undisturbed. Likewise, he in whom all objects of enjoyment enter attains peace, not the desirer of objects. So again, the contrast. So he compares the individual to the river, which merges with the ocean. That is one point of comparison, which we often use, right? The individuality merges into the totality. But here he's using it in a slightly different context. That's why I'm giving the way it's usually used. Here he's using the contrast between the happiness within of a self-realized soul versus the sense objects of the world. So the ocean is so vast that how many ever rivers discharge into it, the level of the ocean doesn't change. It's infinite, literally. Relatively, of course. You've seen the pictures of the Amazon. From one end to the other, at his mouth is like a sea. It's so vast, huge. When it empties into the ocean, does the ocean level go up? Exactly the same. Mighty rivers all discharge into the ocean. Nothing happens. Similarly, he says, in whom all objects are, so the sense objects are so small and finite compared to the infinite bliss of the self. That person who gets to that state alone is peaceful. That is that infinite final state of enlightenment. Not the desirer of objects. So versus a person who is desiring, like all of us, you believe that happiness lies in the external world. You will never find it. That's what he says. Na kama kami, the desirer of desires, the desirer of objects. You can never attain peace. Impossible. The more you gain, the more it flares up. One of the documentaries I not enjoy, it's more educational. There is a fraud, It's not committed by ordinary people who need money. Most of them are committed in a big scale by millionaires and billionaires who are just not satisfied. That fire burns more and more until they destroy themselves. So your life is, you crave for what you don't have, and you get attached to what you do have, and then you fear losing it. So both ways the mind destroys you. What you don't have, you crave for, and you get attached to what you have. That's another problem. How can you gain any peace in this world? It's impossible. So in the Upanishads, he says, Akhandananda Rupas, in that infinite bliss, all the bliss of this world is like a lava, lavashrita, is like one drop in that infinite bliss of enlightenment. All the bliss of all the beings put together, he says, Akhandananda Rupasya, lavashrita, brahmadya, right from the creator to all the created beings. It's a lava. So they try and give the contrast, but it's very difficult. So don't worry. You get to enlightenment is like the river entering the ocean. You lose your individuality, but you gain the totality. See, you have to lose something to gain something, right? You have to lose your ignorance to gain knowledge. You have to lose your childhood to gain youth. So any growth, you have to lose the previous stage. Point is, after a while, you don't grow only. Now, what can you do? At the age of 12, 13, 14, all the desires come, which are all there when you were born. They just come up because your body is not yet able to receive them. So it takes about 12, 13 years to develop fully. Emotionally, physically, everything. Teens. That's when your real personality comes up. That's what the parents don't understand. You become teenager, he starts fighting. He was always a fighter. It's just now it's come up. You understand? Earlier he's too ignorant to know what's happening. So, what are the desires that come up? I want money. I want a partner. I want power. I want name. I want status. And that same fellow, 16 to 86, in his deathbed, what does he want? Money. I want power. My family. Not grown 1 inch. When you die, it's the same mind, the same desires that need to be fulfilled. Again, cycle. This is the cycle, which you don't know. You're caught up. One small part of this cycle. But the mind is the same. So I salute that person who says, I have to get out, I have to break this cycle, no matter what happens. I really salute you. And do something about it. I have to break this cycle, but first let's have breakfast. What? All clear? Any clarifications? '71.
विहाय कामान्यः सर्वान् पुमांश्चरति निःस्पृहः निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः स शान्तिमधिगच्छति विहाय कामान्यः सर्वान् पुमांश्चरति निःस्पृहः निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः स शान्तिमधिगच्छति.
That man who abandons all desires and moves about without yearning, without this sense of ahankara, I, nirmama, my, I and my, he attains peace. Another very important verse because he points out the problem. You will not understand abandoning all desires and moving about without yearning, because that happens only when you have a higher bliss within you, right? It's like an adult says, I have no yearning. I move about in the toy store, Toys R Us, with no yearning. An adult will say that, right? Because an adult has risen above that level. He enjoys a far higher level of enjoyment. Toys mean nothing. So people read these verses and have a very sad misunderstanding of Vedanta, that you have to leave everything. You can't leave unless you have something higher to hold on to. So a person who self-realized, which is explained in the last two verses, enjoys infinite happiness within. So he moves about in this world with nothing to gain. In fact, Krishna tells Arjuna, he's slips up in the sense in those moments they convey their greatness. He tells him in the Gita, I will see it later on. In fact, in the next chapter, he said, I am acting because I ought to act. I have nothing that this world can give me. Nothing in this world can give me anything. But I act still because it ought to be done. You have to do the same. So, what do we have to do? What do we have to do? That ahankara. See, what separates you, you must understand. You are that infinite self. Now, what do you believe yourself to be? What do we all believe ourselves to be? This person, right? This name, Salima, Susan, Meenal, Kem, whatever your name is. You believe yourself to be that individual. That is the sense of I. Which means you are not in the state of enlightenment. So the impediment, that which prevents you from reaching enlightenment, is this sense of I. And how can you even conceive this? Because from the day you were born, everybody was telling you that's what you are. That's what your parents gave you a name. You are that, that, that. Your friends, your family, community. Did anyone say you are not this? You are the self. This is a delusion. Until somewhere some fiber started thinking sometime in life, what is this? What am I doing? Most people don't even get that. So congratulate yourself. Literally, I'm saying. So 1 in 100,000, 1 in 10,000 who gets that thought. This is the impediment. And out of that sense of I comes this sense of mine. I want this. This becomes mine. Egocentric desires. And that separates you from the real self. So how do you feel when somebody puts you down? Why are you hurt? Somebody put somebody else down. That's how a spiritual person looks at it. I have nothing to do with it. But people go along with that I all the time. See, I was seeing one of the crime documentaries, right? The fellow murdered who? His own cousin or something, right? And it was a big mystery to the police and all. Finally, they found it. And he says, why did you do it? Because everybody respects him and not me. Can you believe this? He's got a better job, he's got a better spouse, he's got a better children. Why should he have? So that I is so strong. Somebody has more than you, you can't take it. Goes out of control, this is what happens. These emotions are all ego, jealousy. What is jealousy? Somebody else has more than me. Can destroy your life completely. So you got to be careful what emotions you're going along with. Everything is based on I. And you believe you're so important that this world is meant to cater to you. It doesn't happen that way. That's why you fight with your spouse. He or she is separate. They're not, just because you're married to them, they're not that they are meant to cater to you all the time. They have their own life, you have your own life. No, you cater to me. You don't cater, get out, we divorce, we fight. I. First sign of spirituality is how much can you dissolve that I? Nothing else. That's why we say you got to serve, because when you serve and sacrifice, you're not going along with that selfishness, that I and my. Nobody understands that. It's the only way to be happy. In fact, he's giving the formula even before enlightenment. Whoever has less of I and my, he attains peace. It's relative and absolute. That's selfishness. gives you that instant entertainment. That's the problem. In fact, jealousy, you know what Shakespeare said about jealousy? In Othello, Othello got jealous of Cassio because he thought he was carrying on with his wife, right? So Shakespeare says, beware, my lord, of jealousy. It's the green-eyed monster that mocks the meat it feeds on. Beware, my lord, of jealousy. It's the green-eyed monster. Green-eyed monster means the cat, which mocks the rat before it kills it. If you ever seen how they see it gets the rat into a corner and then starts playing with it, with its paws. It just plays. And the rat gets complacent. It's like as if he's got a playmate. And the minute it gets comfortable, it kills it. He says all these negative emotions like jealousy are like that. They mock you until they feed on you, destroy you. That's what happened to Othello. Jealousy, it mocked him. It's mocking him in the sense it's entertaining in the beginning. I'll show him. I'll make sure he doesn't do that. I will finish it. That entertains you. But you don't know what you're doing. Ego, arrogance, jealousy, fear, obsession, greed, all these mock you until they eat you up. So if you want to be peaceful, and all these emotions come out of that I and my, that's the source. So your mission in this world is to rise above that I and my. You will be in a heaven of your own. Literally a heaven. Yes, Vivek, you have a question?
Gautamji, good morning. I just had one question. A few minutes ago, you said about the sense perception, the wants and desires. This is something which we keep hearing in most lectures. In one of the lecture I was at the temple here also, they said, Bhagwan semat mango, Bhagwan ko mango. And you also said, about the sense perception. While I agree and I understand, it's not all about money, power, and success, but we live in a materialistic society, and people often gauge and judge by our success, how much money or what status we hold. So that is like a dog chasing its tail. Whether you want to become a saint or whether you want to be a successful person in this society. So what is the harm in trying to chase the success? We are not here living in the materialistic society to be saints.
Yeah, so
even though we can live a saintly life. I mean, I don't know.
No, that's what I'm explaining to you all. People, first of all, to say people gauge has no meaning. This is nothing but your fat ego. Not talking about you personally. It is everybody. Got such a ego, they're worried more about what people think than what they are. So don't talk about what people think. Okay, that's not a criteria. You want to be that people think is nothing but the desire for power and success, which will never satisfy you. How much ever you gain, you will want more. You will never be satisfied. That's number one. Number two, you can pursue the material world, but the pursuit should always be for a higher purpose, not your personal wealth and power. That should be incidental. I've told you all, this is the way to spiritualize your life. You don't have to leave everything and try and become a saint like you're saying. It's not possible, first of all. So, whatever you do it for the sake of others. You're working in a company. Nobody is saying you should not progress or be successful. But think in terms of how you can benefit your company rather than what you can get out of that company. That's all. That's living a saintly life. That is karma yoga.
Mm.
And along with your life, you got to study 1 hour in the morning. I've told you all. Live unselfishly, attend the talks. So simple. It's nothing difficult to do. So dedicate your actions in the world for some higher purpose, not just your personal wealth and success. Let them come by themselves through your dedicated action. They'll come. If you're genuinely working for your organization, the organization won't let you go. It's as simple as that. I know doctors who told me I've moved to the other town, 1.5 hours away. The patients all come there. He's saying, why are you coming here? There are other doctors in that town. No, we want to come to you only. Literally. Because they know they take care of them. They are different than other doctors. It's as simple as that. So, you genuinely work for others, you don't want money also, it will come to you. Literally. Last week only somebody told me, you got a huge bonus, completely unannounced, completely unexpected, much more than usual. I said, how come? They gave me a letter, we recognize that you are working only for the company's sake, so we wanted to give. You see. Last week, I said, you don't even have to talk about it. So, you think money and power will not come? But that should not be the goal of life. That should be incidental to your actions.
Thank you.
Like in Protasalos, he says, for fearless virtue bringeth boundless gain. Protasalos gave up his life. It's all symbolic. Life means ego, the sense of I and mine. So, the poets, like Wordsworth in Lidomia, he personifies it as giving up your life for your country. Prince Protasalos. And he goes to heaven. Means this. It means exactly what Vedanta is saying. You give up that I or my, you're in heaven, you're in enlightenment. And he teaches his wife, for fearless virtue bringeth boundless gain. To the extent you are fearless in giving up your ego, you get boundless. You give up your ego fully, you become infinite. It's as simple as that. The more you chase after the world, the more it runs from you. Yes, Anupama.
Hariom Gautamji. So Gautamji, I'm very confused. As much as I love being on this spiritual journey, it confuses me because on one hand we say to let go of your ego and serve others, and then when you have a self-realization living in a toxic environment and you want to break off from that, you're coming back to the spiritual journey, they say that, there's too much I in you. But then we need that I for the self-love to realize that this is not serving us first, because we've been serving others for so long. My question is, why is this spiritual journey, at least for myself, so confusing that every time it makes you feel bad for any decision you take towards serving yourself first in order to be away from that toxic environment and being in a positive environment, and then taking this journey forward where it's important to move on. I just need to understand that.
Yeah, see, what you must understand, you're absolutely right. First of all, first thing you must understand, people will not understand what you're doing. See, the path to enlightenment is selfless. It's not selfish, because to grow spiritually, you have to give up your selfishness. So how can you say you're being selfish? You're working towards giving up your selfishness. That's the actual spiritual path. And how you expect anybody to understand that unless a person himself is educated or trying to understand these truths? So don't bother about that part of it. What you should understand is No doubt that is your primary obligation in life. The reason you're born is to realize yourself, right? But you also have other obligations which you have to perform selflessly in order to grow spiritually. So you may have an obligation as a spouse, as a mother, as a daughter, as a friend, as a member of your country, community. So a truly spiritual person performs all those obligations in a spirit of service and sacrifice, not expecting anything in return. So those obligations, in fact, help you grow spiritually. So you have a family, serve them. Problem comes when you expect something for that service. That's this. And if that little time you're spending in studying or growing spiritually, that also they have a problem, leave them alone. Let them have a problem. You can't, as long as you are doing your obligations, you can't do more than that. Now there's no end. Suppose your spouse says at 10 o'clock only today, come with me for a picnic. I'm just giving an example. You say, I'll come with you at 11 o'clock. 10 to 11 is the time I've committed for my spiritual lesson, whatever. That much they have to, unless there's an emergency or something, right? So you do your obligations. Nobody should have a problem. But this is not a selfish, this is a field where you're trying to dissolve your selfishness. How can you call it selfish? And you can't convince them. They can't understand. You leave them alone. It's like trying to convince a child. You can't. They just can't understand what you're doing. So you have to talk in their language. You go play tennis, let me do Vedanta. That's all they can. Okay, I'm doing your thing, you're doing my. That's fine. You can't say I'm doing selfless, you're doing selfish, and then they'll say something wrong with you. You are toxic for them. They are not toxic for you. That's what they'll say. So you must have that maturity. Yes, Vasu.
Gautamji, just a clarification. So, you said the whole spiritual path is the dissolution of the sense of I, right? So when, in daily situations, when the sense of I crops up, how do we recognize that, and how do we kind of guard against that? And, can you give any tips?
No, it will keep propping up. You have to set a plan that, okay, I am working unselfishly, let's say for my company. That's your goal for the day. How best can I serve, right? And that sense of I will come up. Will I get a promotion? Or will I get a raise this year? Will my boss appreciate me? Put those thoughts aside. How best can I serve the organization? So you have a goal. Anything comes up which is against that goal, you have to set it aside with your intellect. That's the whole spiritual path, right? And you must be prepared. It will come and overtake you because your intellect is not grown. So it's a slow process. So don't be disappointed in yourself. You'll never do anything. Right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Roberta?
Thank you. Are there professions that we should avoid? Ones that may harm others or the planet, or how do you mediate that?
Yes, if you can, you should. It depends on your own conscience and conviction. See, as Shakespeare says, to thine own self be true. It must follow as night the day. Thou canst not then be false to any man. You have to be true to your conviction, your conscience in life. So if you can avoid, you must do your best to avoid harming others without reason. So if you can avoid it, you can. If you cannot, minimize it. Now, what else you want me to say? So, for example, we took a decision many years ago to not, harm animals and other innocent creatures, right? In terms of our diet and all that. So, it was true to our conscience. I can't say it's right for you. But when you can have a perfectly healthy life without harming others, why not? Then we went even to the extent of dairy because they literally torture the animals to extract it, constantly imagine being put on a machine, and so even that we went to the next extent. Now, I'm not saying you should all do that. Whatever you feel is right for your conscience, do it, including your profession or your work or what you eat, how long you shower, just because you can afford it 1 hour sitting in how much resources are being consumed. This is unselfishness. You're thinking of others. So I'm glad you're thinking along those lines. But you have to make your decision. It's not for me to say what you should or should not do. So we'll take up verse 72. I want to finish this today. Shreyas, you can type in your question for the Wednesday session. We are having Q&A this Wednesday.
एषा ब्राह्मी स्थितिः पार्थ नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यते स्थित्वा स्यामन्तकालेऽपि ब्रह्मनिर्वाणमृच्छति एषा ब्राह्मी स्थितिः पार्थ नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यते स्थित्वा स्यामन्तकालेऽपि ब्रह्मनिर्वाणमृच्छति.
This is the state of Brahman, O Partha. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha. Attaining this, none is deluded. Being established therein even at the end of life. Brahma Nirvana Mrichati. Nirvana means that oneness with Brahman. So, the final verse of Sthitaprañja, Krishna gives the staggering truth that enlightenment is permanent. Nainam prapya vimuhyati. Once you get there, you can never return to this deluded state. So, as we have discussed before, all humans go through the delusion of waking, dream, deep sleep. Deep sleep is ignorance, manifests as thoughts and desires in the dream, and thoughts, desires, and actions in the waking. These are the three conditioned, unreal states. The real state is Chaturtham, the fourth, Turiyam, the fourth state of consciousness, which is pure consciousness, eternal, all blissful, infinite. This is called in Vedanta as Brahman, the absolute reality. Just for some of you who may not be conversant with the concepts, it's not Brahma. See, this is where the Brahma is the creator. Vishnu is the maintenance. Shiva is destruction. They're all symbolic expressions of creation, maintenance, destruction, which is the world. That is different. This is Brahman, the reality. The pure consciousness. And when Brahman, that supreme reality which is all pervading, functions in each one of us, it is referred to as Atman. But it's the same thing. Just as pot space and total space is the same. It's indivisible. For the purpose of clarification, we say a space of a pot, space of a room, space in this house. Space is space. It's the indivisible, infinite reality. Brahman is way beyond space. Space itself is conditioned. It's matter. And once you get there, he says, you cannot come back. See, once you wake up from a dream, you don't go back to that same dream. It's like that. Once you become educated, you can't become illiterate, right? Suppose you spoke broken English. Where are you goings? That's how you used to speak English, and now you know how to speak English. Can you ever talk like that? Where are you coming from? Tomorrow's you goings, yesterday's. You will not talk like that. So you become literate. You know how to eat in a dignified manner. See, when you eat soup, there should be no noise. You know that? It should go into your mouth. That's what we were taught first. I've seen people. The other side of the restaurant, they can hear the fellow drinking the soup. Illiterate fellow. So, once you become cultured, can you become uncultured? You understand? So, it's like that. You can't. So you can't get. So once you wake up from this dream, you never come back to this mortality, even at the end. So your body dies. An enlightened soul, the body is gone. It's like you've woken up and your dream body is dead. It has no meaning. That whole realm is gone. So this is that state of Brahman, oh Arjuna. So he's giving the last bit. Now this is that infinite state of enlightenment. It's total nirvana. So he asks him in the Upanishad, he asks him, what do you mean total liberation? What do you mean you're totally liberated? He says, Yasa, Ashanaya, Pipasa, Shoka, Moha, Jara, Mrityu, Atyeti. That which is beyond hunger, thirst, sorrow, delusion, old age and death, that is Brahman. As long as you're not in Brahman, there is sorrow, either physical or mental. It has to be, and it will end in old age and death. There is no way out except enlightenment. So he tells him, what king? They have a contempt, teaching the king of that state. He's a pauper sage sitting there. Talks to him with complete contempt. So reflect on these verses. So thus ends Sthitaprañja. And as we always do, we will chant the ending invocation. For which verse we are chanting first? Chapter 1? Chapter 2, verse 1? We'll chant chapter 2, verse 1 after we chant the ending invocation.
Om Tat Sat. Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Sankhya Yogo Nama Dvitiyodhyayah. Sanjaya Uvacha Tam Tatha Kripaya Vishtam Ashrupurna Kulekshanam Vishidantamidam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha.
So next week we will begin Karma Yoga, the path of action. This is a great chapter to get anybody interested in the Gita because it is very practical. Second chapter was highly philosophical, if you remember in the beginning. But chapter 3 is practical, even for the youngsters, Anybody, I would say, 16 and above who's interested, even a little bit, this chapter in the Gita, this chapter tells them how to act in the world. Very practical. So we will start that next Sunday as usual, and we resume our Q&A this Wednesday evening. If you have any questions, send them in. Even if you don't attend live, you can always catch up on the recording on YouTube. So we'll see you on Wednesday. Hari Om.